The room was cold and dark, filled with whispers and the sound of slow footsteps. Lights hung from the ceiling, flickering above the auction stage like dying stars. Aliens from many species stood in the crowd, watching closely. Some came to buy machines. Some came to buy weapons. But today, something different was for sale. She stood alone on the stage then, quiet and shaking. Her name was Lyra. She had silver skin with dark marks that showed pain and scars. Her eyes were bright violet, but tired. One of her legs was gone, replaced by a broken metal stick that barely helped her stand. She held a sign with both hands. It was simple and clear. For sale, myself. One prosthetic leg in return. No one spoke. The auctioneer, a tall green creature with 4 arms, shouted loudly, "A young worker, strong mind, learns fast." Just 1 leg in exchange. The crowd laughed. "She's broken." Someone yelled. "She won't last a week," another said. Lyra kept her eyes down. Her heart beat fast. She didn't want to be here, but she had no choice. She had tried everything begging, working, even stealing. Nothing gave her enough to buy a prosthetic. Without a real leg, she was nothing on this station. No job, no future, no hope. So she offered herself, but no one stepped forward. She wasn't beautiful. She wasn't strong. And she wasn't whole. Minutes passed. The auctioneer scratched his chin. "Anyone? No one? This is a deal, my friends." Still silence. Lyra's arms were getting tired. Her body hurt. The metal stick under her leg slipped a little, and she almost fell. A few aliens snickered. Just then, a shadow moved at the back of the room. A man stepped forward tall, with a coat that dragged across the floor. His face was hidden under a hood, but his boots were heavy, human-made. A few aliens moved away as he walked past them. Lyra looked up for a second. The man stopped right in front of the stage. He looked at her, really looked at her, not like a thing, not like trash, but like a person. She didn't understand it. Then he raised one hand and pointed at her. "I'll take her," he said calmly. Everyone turned. The auctioneer blinked. "You want her?" The man nodded once. "Yes." The green alien laughed awkwardly. "She's missing a leg, human. Maybe missing a brain, too." "I said I'll take her," the man repeated, louder this time. The auctioneer looked nervous now. Humans were rare on this station, and this one looked serious. He muttered something into a small device. A robot rolled forward, scanning the man's ID. Transaction complete. The robot turned to Lyra and said, "You are now property of this buyer. Follow him." Lyra didn't move. She looked at the man with wide eyes. She didn't know what to feel: fear, confusion, or hope. Why would a human buy her? What did he want? The man looked up, and she finally saw his face. His eyes were tired, but calm. A long scar ran across his left cheek. He wasn't young, but he was strong. "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Lal?" "Lyra," she said. "I'm Dan," he replied. "Let's get out of here." He stepped down and gently held her arm. She pulled back at first, but then allowed him to help her off the stage. The metal legs squeaked as they walked, but he didn't care. He didn't laugh. He didn't stare. The crowd moved aside. Some looked curious. Some just looked confused. No one said anything. Outside the auction hall, the lights were brighter. Ships flew overhead. Lyra squinted. Dan walked slowly so she could keep up. After a few minutes, they reached a small ship. It was old but clean. The door opened with a soft hiss. Dan helped her inside and led her to a seat. He gave her a warm drink and a protein bar. She stared at them. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said, sitting across from her. "Why did you buy me?" She asked quietly. Dan looked at her for a long moment, then said, "Because someone helped me once when I was broken too." Lyra held the cup tight. The warmth spread through her fingers, up to her heart. She didn't know who this man was. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like nothing. Lyra sat quietly inside the small ship, holding the warm cup close to her chest. The drink had a strange taste, but it felt good like safety. Her eyes moved slowly around the room. Everything was neat. Tools were packed. Wires were organized. A soft humming sound came from the engine below. Dan sat across from her, looking at a screen, typing something with calm hands. He didn't watch her. He didn't pressure her. He just gave her time. Finally, Lyra spoke. "Are you going to use me?" Dan didn't look shocked. He turned his chair and faced her gently. "No," he said simply. "But you bought me. I bought your freedom." She didn't answer. That word freedom sounded too big, too impossible. Dan stood and opened a small storage cabinet. Inside were tools, parts, and something shiny wrapped in cloth. He brought it over and unwrapped it slowly. Lyra gasped. It was a metal leg. Not junk. Not a scrap, but a real prosthetic. "It's not perfect," Dan said. "Old model, but it works, and I can adjust it to fit you." Lyra's hands shook. "You're giving this to me?" Dan nodded. "It's yours." She blinked fast, trying not to cry. Her whole life, people had taken from her food, safety, pride. Now someone was giving without asking anything back. "But why?" she whispered. "Why help me?" Dan leaned against the table, arms crossed. "Because," he said, "I was once like you. On a battlefield, broken. I lost both legs in a blast. Everyone ran. But an alien nursed someone like you stayed behind. She dragged me to safety, saved my life. She didn't ask why. She just saw a person who needed help." Lyra stared at him. "She died the next day," Dan added. "I never forgot her. She changed everything for me." He placed the leg gently beside her. "I promised myself, if I ever got the chance, I'd do the same for someone else." Lyra touched the metal. It was warm from his hands. "Thank you," she whispered. Dan gave her a small smile. "We'll fit it tomorrow. Tonight, you rest." He left her alone in the small cabin. Lyra looked around the quiet space. There were no locks, no chains, just warmth and a blanket folded nearby. She slowly laid down on the small bed, unsure if she could trust sleep. But her body gave in. For the first time in weeks, she didn't sleep in fear. The next morning, Dan began adjusting the leg. He measured her limb, tested parts, and explained everything as he worked. "This part connects to your nerves," he said. "It may feel strange, but you'll learn fast." Lyra nodded. She didn't speak much. Her mind was still catching up. When the fitting was done, Dan helped her up. "Try it," he said. She took a shaky step, then another. The leg clicked softly, but it held strong. Lyra smiled, wide and real. "I'm walking," she whispered. Dan stood back and crossed his arms. "You're not just walking. You're starting over." Later that day, they left the ship. Dan needed supplies, and Lyra insisted on going with him. They walked through the market, the same one where she was sold just a day before. This time, she didn't look down. This time, she walked on her own. Some aliens stared. Some whispered. Dan ignored them. So did she dock, but then 2 station guards stopped them. "Human," one growled. "That girl is illegal property. You'll return her now." Dan stepped forward, calm, unshaken. "She's not property," he said. "She's free." The guard raised his weapon. "She was sold yesterday. That contract stands." "No," Dan replied. "I didn't buy her. I gave her a leg. That was a gift. The second guard turned to Lyra. Did you agree to this? Is this man forcing you? Lyra stood tall. Her new leg gave her balance and courage. No one owns me, she said. The guards frowned. Don stepped between them and Lyra. We're leaving now. Don't follow. The guards didn't move. But they also didn't stop him. Dan and Lyra walked away calm, steady, side by side. Back on the ship, Lyra sat down slowly. You didn't run, she said. I don't run from what's right. Dan replied. Lyra looked at her leg again. Her fingers traced the smooth metal. I'm not broken anymore, she whispered. Dan smiled. No, you were never broken, just waiting to heal. The stars outside the ship looked calm. Inside, Lyra was not. She paced slowly, practicing each step on her new leg. The metal was smooth, strong, and well fit now. It didn't hurt. It didn't creak. It just worked. Each step felt like magic. Dan watched quietly from a corner, arms crossed, sipping from a warm cup. You're walking better already, he said. Lyra turned, her voice low but steady. I don't want to be weak anymore. You're not, he answered. She hesitated. I want to be useful. Dan stood and walked toward her. You already are, but if you want to learn more, I can teach you. Lyra nodded quickly. And so the lessons began. Each day, Dan showed her something new. He taught her how to repair wires, how to fix engine parts, and how to read data panels. Lyra struggled at first. Numbers danced in her head, and alien codes felt confusing. But Dan never raised his voice. He never rushed her. You're learning faster than I did, he said one evening. Lyra looked up from the control board, surprised. You? Dan chuckled. I crashed a training drone my first week in flight school. Twice. Lyra laughed. Soft, short sound she hadn't made in years. Dan smiled. He liked hearing it. One night, while cleaning storage, Lyra found a metal box. She brought it to Dan. He opened it slowly. Inside were war medals, badges, old dog tags. Lyra looked at them carefully. You were a soldier? Yes, Dan said, a long time ago. She didn't ask more, but Dan told her anyway. He spoke of a war on the edge of a forgotten system, a fight over resources. His squad had been ambushed. Most were killed. He lost both legs in a blast and was left behind, but an alien woman found him scarred and limping like Lyra had been. She carried him back, one step at a time, through fire and enemy gunfire. She saved his life, and then died from her wounds the next day. I owed her everything, Dan said quietly, but I could never repay her. Lyra was silent for a long time. Finally, she whispered, You're doing it now. Dan looked at her, surprised. You saved me. Maybe that's what she wanted, for you to save someone else. The next day, alarms rang out through the station speakers. Warning, unauthorized forces entering Port Bay 3. Dan ran to the cockpit. Lyra followed. Outside the window, 3 strange ships were landing, black, fast, and armed. Pirates. Dan cursed under his breath. They're not supposed to be here. What do we do? Lyra asked. Dan checked the screens. We stay hidden. Let security handle it. But the comm system lit up. A call from an old friend station engineer, Tarn, one of the few who respected Dan. Pan. The security bots are down. Pirates are in the refugee quarters. They're taking people. Dan stared at the screen. Then he turned to Lyra. You don't have to come, he said. But I can't stay here. Lyra looked down at her leg. She flexed her foot. I'm not hiding anymore. Dan smiled faintly. Then let's suit up. In the weapons locker, Lyra found light armor that fit her small frame. Dan handed her a stun baton. Stay close. Watch my back." They moved fast through the dark side corridors of the station, avoiding cameras, stepping over broken crates and fallen signs. Screams echoed in the distance. Lyra gripped her weapon tighter. As they turned the corner, they saw a pirate dragging a young alien child, terrified, crying. Dan raised his weapon, but Lyra moved first. She charged, fast and silent. Her new leg gave her power. She struck the pirate hard, knocking him down. Dan finished him off with a clean shot. The child ran to safety. Dan turned to her. "You moved like a soldier." Lyra shook slightly. "I was scared. That's how I knew you were ready." They fought through 2 more hallways, helping refugees escape. Lyra used her leg to kick open doors, her body moving like she'd trained for years. But deep down, she knew this wasn't just training. It was the first time she felt strong. Later that night, the pirates were gone. The station was safe. Dan and Lyra returned to the ship, tired, dusty, but alive. Lyra sat down and looked at her leg, scratched now, covered in dirt. She smiled. "I think I understand," she said softly. "Understand what?" Dan asked. "What it means to give someone a second chance." Dan nodded. "And what does it mean to you?" Lyra leaned back, looked at the stars, and whispered, "It means becoming the person you once needed most." The station's night. Cycle began, and the lights dimmed across the outer docking ring. Most traders had closed their shops. Families stayed hidden behind locked doors. But in the shadows, movement stirred. Dan checked the scanner in his hand. Red blips moved fast across the map. "They're back," he said. Another pirate group. Lyra stood by his side, her armored vest tightened, baton clipped to her side. "Same ships?" she asked. "No," Dan said. "Worse. These are slavers." Lyra's jaw tightened. "They'll go after the weak ones first," Dan said. "The old, the injured." He looked at her. "We can leave now. No one will blame you." Lyra didn't answer right away. Her hands slowly balled into fists. "I was one of the weak ones once," she said. "No one helped me." Dan nodded. Slowly. So now it's my turn to help them." Dan's lips curved into a proud smile. "Then let's get to work." They moved out of the ship and into the lower maintenance tunnels, a forgotten path that twisted beneath the station. Pipes hissed overhead. The ground was wet and cold. Lyra used her prosthetic leg carefully, adjusting to the uneven floor. She had trained for this now. She had learned balance, timing, silence. They passed a group of frightened aliens hiding behind. "A crate. Go to Dock Bay 7, Dan whispered. "The path is clear." A child tugged Lyra's hand. "Are you a soldier?" She knelt and smiled softly. "No, I'm just someone who remembers how it feels to be afraid." The child nodded and ran with the others. Lyra stood again. Dan said, "You're more than a soldier." They made it to the central station core, where lights flickered red emergency. Lockdown. Voices echoed up ahead. Armed pirates barked orders in an alien language. Screams followed. Dawn, and Lyra ducked behind a wall. "There are too many," she whispered. "We split them," Dan replied. "Draw them out." He reached into his pack and pulled out a small metal disc. With a click, it began to blink. Noise. "Bomb," he explained. "I'll throw it right. We move left." Lyra nodded. "I'll cover you." Dawn paused, touched her shoulder. "Be careful." She grinned. "You taught me well." The noise bomb rolled and exploded in a burst of sharp static. The pirates turned, shouting. Dan and Lyra dashed the other way. Lyra moved fast, now strong and silent. Her leg carried her across the hall like it had always been part of her. They slid into a dark storage room. 2 pirates stood inside. Surprised. Lyra didn't hesitate. She jumped forward, swinging her baton at the first one's knee. The alien howled and dropped. Don tackled the second, slamming him into a crate. It was fast. Clean, like they'd done this for years. They grabbed weapons, updated maps, and moved again. By now, the station's alarm systems were failing. Lights blinked in strange patterns. Air vents groaned. They passed a large open hallway, and Lyra stopped suddenly. Her eyes locked on a familiar sign. It was the same auction block where she had stood days ago. The place where no one wanted her. Where her life almost ended. She walked into the center of the stage. The lights above were cracked. The floor still had her chalk-marked footprint from the day she offered herself for sale. Dan walked up beside her. "Strange feeling?" he asked. "No," she whispered. "I feel strong here now." Dan smiled. "Then let's take this fight home." They used the old auction system to make an open broadcast across the station. Lyra's voice echoed through every hallway, every room. "To everyone listening, get to Dock 7. We will protect you. You are not alone anymore." And then she added one more line. "They tried to sell me once, but now I decide who I am." The pirates didn't like that. They tracked the signal fast. Soon, Dan and Lyra heard heavy boots rushing toward them. Dan looked at her. "Time to run?" Lyra shook her head. "Time to fight." They set up a trap metal crates rigged with shock wires, lights redirected to blind, floors made slippery with coolant spray. When the first pirate entered, he tripped and flew into a live wire. 2 more followed and were taken down by Dan's stun blasts, but the last one, the biggest, charged straight at Lyra. She stood still. Waited. Then, at the perfect moment, used her prosthetic leg to sweep his feet out from under him. He crashed into the ground, groaning. She didn't smile. She didn't say a word. She just stood tall. Later, when the station guards finally arrived, it was already over. Pirates were tied up. Refugees were safe. Dan leaned back against a crate, breathing hard. Lyra walked up to him, dirt on her face, a cut on her arm, but eyes glowing. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm more than okay," she said. The battle was over. But inside the ship, the silence felt heavier than before. Lyra sat alone in the corner, gently wiping the dirt off her prosthetic leg. Her fingers moved slowly, careful not to scratch the silver surface. Her eyes weren't focused on the leg, though they were on her thoughts. She didn't feel broken anymore, but something inside her was still unsure. A soft question echoed in her heart. Why me? Dan walked in, holding a small kit with bandages. He knelt beside her and placed it between them. "You held your own out there," he said. Lyra didn't reply. She kept cleaning. Dan noticed the quiet. "What is it?" he asked gently. She paused, then looked at him. "You helped me, gave me a leg, taught me, fought beside me. But you don't even know who I really am." Dan leaned back against the wall. "I know enough." Lyra shook her head. "You know my pain, but not my past." Dan stayed quiet. He didn't push. That silence gave her space. So she spoke. "I was born on the scrap planet of Vetronine," Lyra began. "My kind. We were workers, not soldiers, not scientists, just used. My parents died in a factory collapse. I was 5. After that, I lived in tunnels. I stole food. I begged. I lied to survive. And when I lost my leg to infection, no one helped. They said I was worthless. Trash." Her voice trembled, but she kept going. "I heard about the auction hall from a dying man. He told me some people trade bodies for parts. I thought maybe someone would see me, give me a chance." She looked down. Her hands gripped the prosthetic tightly. "But no one even looked until you." Dan nodded slowly. "You know, I was born on a mining moon called Tarsel 3. My parents worked themselves sick just to feed us. Then the war came. and I signed. Up to escape that life. He tapped his fingers on his leg. I lost both legs on my second mission. Lay there for hours, bleeding, alone, until one person someone your kind would call broken saved me. She had nothing, but she gave me everything. He looked at Lyra now, eyes steady. I think we both were saved by the same kind of people. Not perfect, not powerful, just kind. Lyra blinked away a tear. Do you ever miss the man you used to be? Dan gave a small smile. Sometimes. But then I remember if I stayed that man, I wouldn't be here with you. The ship's lights flickered as power systems rebooted from earlier damage. Lyra stood and walked toward a shelf near Dan's bunk. Something caught her eye, a folded piece of fabric. She picked it up. It was an old photo. She saw Dan, younger and in uniform, standing beside an alien woman with kind eyes and a serious face. Her arm was around him. Both had small smiles. She saved you, Lyra said. Don nodded. Her name was Kale. She was a nurse. No one else stayed behind, but she did. Lyra traced her finger across Kale's face. She looks like someone who saw pain and didn't turn away. Dan's voice softened. Like you. Later, as the ship prepared for liftoff, Dan sat in the pilot's chair. The station behind them faded into the background, safe again. Quiet again. Lyra joined him, sitting beside the co-pilot console. So where now? She asked. Dan grinned. Anywhere you want. She thought for a moment. Somewhere we can help others like us, she said. He glanced at her. That's not a small mission. I know, she replied. But I'm not small anymore. He reached over and tapped the console. Coordinates locked, he said. Welcome aboard, Lyra. She smiled. The stars ahead looked brighter than before. Not because they had changed, but because she had. The stars flew past the ship's window, like white streaks across a black sea. Lyra stood in front of the mirror inside the small cabin. Her reflection stared back strong, calm, and different from the girl who once stood on an auction block. She touched the side of her face. There was a new scar now, just under her left eye, from the pirate fight. But she didn't hide it. She had earned it. Her new leg worked like part of her body, now smooth and quiet. Dan had made a few upgrades. It had more balance, more speed, and even a hidden tool slot. She turned and opened the door. Don was in the main room, fixing wires and sipping coffee. Lyra walked up behind him. You promised to teach me how to fly. Dan looked over his shoulder with a grin. And I always keep my promises. Over the next few weeks, the ship became a training ground. Lyra learned flight controls, emergency landings, how to read energy signatures, and how to negotiate with shady traders. But more than anything, she learned how to lead. Their ship, the Emberlight, traveled across forgotten zones, places where weak and abandoned people hid in fear. Refugees, broken machines, discarded alien children, those who had been left behind. Lyra helped every time. She fixed broken legs, carried food packs, and fought raiders when she had to. Dan watched her from the shadows, proud but quiet. She didn't need saving anymore. She had become the one who saves. One day, they received a distress signal. Planet, Stravo 6 message. Slavers have returned. We have no weapons. Please help. Don looked at her. This is dangerous, Lyra nodded. Let's go. They arrived in orbit hours later. Fires burned across the colony. Slave transports floated above the ground like black sharks in the sky. Lyra didn't hesitate. She suited up. Her armor was different now, custom fit, simple but tough. Her leg had built-in stabilizers and a retractable blade. Anne handed her the captain's badge. You sure? He asked. Lyra took it without blinking. It's time. On the ground, chaos ruled. Slavers shouted. People ran. Children cried. Then came the sound of a ship landing. The ember light appeared through smoke and fire, its lights glowing like a rising sun dot, and then she stepped out. Lyra, at the same girl who was once ignored, unwanted, sold like scrap, now walking. With a steady step, her silver legs shining in the dust, the slavers turned, confused. She's alone, one muttered. But they didn't see the truth. She wasn't alone. She carried every pain she had survived, every lesson she had learned, every person she had helped. She raised her voice. Let them go or face me. The slavers laughed until she moved fast, sharp, silent. Her baton cracked against one's helmet. Her blade spun out from her leg, cutting another's weapon in half. People from the colony watched in shock. A few joined her, finding courage. Dan arrived moments later with drones and stun rifles. Together, they pushed the slavers back step by step. That it wasn't a war, it was a warning. Hours later, the fires were out. The colony safe. The children she rescued ran to hug her. One of them, a small alien boy with only one arm, held up a drawing. It was Lyra, standing tall, with stars behind her. You're the warrior, he said proudly. Lyra looked down, touched by the simple words. Dan stood behind her and placed a hand on her shoulder. You're more than that, he said. You're what this galaxy needs. She took a deep breath, letting it all sink in. She had walked through fire, through rejection, through fear. And now she walked as a leader. That night, she recorded a message to the outer worlds. A broadcast, sent across forgotten frequencies. They once told me I was worthless, and no one would want a broken girl with no leg. But someone gave me a chance, and now I give others the same. We are not weak. We are not trash. We are survivors, fighters, and we are rising. From slave markets to mining colonies, her name began to spread. Lyra the warrior, Lyra the flame, the girl who stood and changed the stars. Asterisk.